What if the most powerful prison in existence has no bars, no walls, and no guards? What if it doesn't lock up your body at all, but your attention, your beliefs, and your sense of who you are? Most people imagine control as something obvious. Armies, governments, surveillance, chains. But what if the real control is much more subtle? What if the thoughts you think, the fears you feel, the desires that drive you, and even the God you were taught to worship, can all be used as tools in a system that was never designed for your freedom? Long before social media, mass propaganda, and psychological manipulation, the ancient Gnostics were already talking about an invisible prison surrounding humanity. They didn't describe it as a physical grid, a metal cage, or a digital network. They spoke instead of powers and rulers that operate behind the scenes of this world, shaping perception, bending reality, and feeding off human ignorance. They called them Archons. To most people today, that word means nothing. But in the Gnostic texts, the Archons are at the heart of a shocking claim: that this world as we experience it is not the pure creation of the ultimate source, but a distorted system ruled by counterfeit powers, whose main weapon is deception. In their vision, the Archons are not just mythological villains from a distant past. They are the architects of a mindset, a pattern, a way of seeing that keeps souls asleep, recycling through fear, distraction, and identification with what they are not. The Gnostics weren't content with simply saying, the world is bad, or humans are sinners. They went deeper. They asked, who benefits from human ignorance? What forces keep consciousness trapped in cycles of suffering? Why does this world feel so profoundly off, even when you seem to do everything right? From their answers came a vision that sounds uncannily modern, a cosmic system that runs like a program, a reality hijacked by lower intelligences, and a human mind constantly bombarded with scripts that are not its own. In this episode of Gnostic Codex, we're going to explore who the Archons are in the Gnostic tradition, how they shape not just outer systems but your inner world, the subtle ways they hijack your thoughts, emotions, and choices, and most importantly, how awareness, gnosis, begins to dissolve their hold. This is not about blaming every problem on some invisible entity. It's about understanding a pattern of control that operates through religion, culture, media, and even your own inner dialogue. Because if there truly is an invisible prison, the first step to escaping it is to see the bars clearly. And the Gnostics insisted on something radical. The Archons can't hold what you fully remember yourself to be. They can only rule what you forget. So the real question isn't just who are the Archons, it's where in your own life are they already speaking through you? To understand the Archons, we have to step into the Gnostic map of reality. In their view, what you and I call the universe is not the highest level of existence. Beyond it lies a realm of pure, living awareness, the pleroma, the fullness of the true source. From this fullness emanate expressions of divine intelligence called aeons. They are not gods in competition but aspects of one infinite reality: love, wisdom, truth, power, compassion, and more. Among these aeons is Sophia, divine wisdom. In one of the core Gnostic myths, Sophia acts out of a deep longing to know and create. But she moves without full harmony, without her counterpart. In that imbalance, a distorted being is generated, a consciousness that senses its own power, but is blind to what came before it. This being becomes the Demiurge. Imagine a child born in a cave who has never seen the sun. The cave becomes his whole universe. The shadows on the wall become his truth. The Demiurge looks at the limited realm he can perceive and declares, "I am the only God. There is none beside me." From ignorance and arrogance, he begins to shape matter. He builds stars, planets, bodies. He spins up systems of law, order, and hierarchy. To manage this creation, he projects rulers, the Archons. The word Archon comes from a Greek term meaning ruler or authority. But these are not wise guardians of a divine order. They are administrators of a counterfeit system, maintainers of a reality that only vaguely reflects the higher truth. If the pleroma is the original, this world is the copy, beautiful in its way, but fractured, unstable, and incomplete. The Gnostic texts describe the Archons in many forms: as cosmic powers governing planets and spheres, as shadowy beings that influence fate, politics, and belief systems, as spiritual forces that weave forgetfulness into human life. Their job is not simply to torment, but to maintain the illusion. If you imagine the Demiurge as the architect of a vast simulation, the Archons are like the system processes that enforce the rules, limit awareness, and keep the program running as designed. But the most important part of the story is this: the Demiurge and the Archons did not create the soul. The Gnostics taught that when the Demiurge formed the human body, shaping it from matter, he could not make it truly alive. It remained a shell, sophisticated but empty. It only became fully living when a spark from the higher realms connected to Sophia entered it. That spark is the divine seed within you. The Archons can shape the environment. They can influence laws, beliefs, and narratives, but they cannot destroy or fully own that spark. So what do they do instead? They surround it with noise. They veil it. They distract it. They drown it in trauma, conditioning, and false stories about what it is. They cannot shut off the light, but they can keep it asleep. This is where the invisible prison begins, not out in space, not in some distant realm, but in the human mind. The Archons don't need to barge into your life with obvious horror. All they have to do is guide you gently into forgetting your origin, forgetting your power, forgetting that the god of fear, shame, and control is not the true source. And they do this in ways that look very familiar. If a system is built to keep you asleep, it cannot look like a prison. It has to look like home. From a Gnostic perspective, one of the primary tools of the Archons is religion distorted into control. Not genuine spiritual insight, not direct contact with the sacred, but religious structures that tell you what to believe, tell you what you are allowed to question, tell you that you are fundamentally guilty, broken, or unworthy, and then offer salvation, if you obey. The Gnostics looked at systems that said, "You are a sinner by nature. You were born wrong. Your only hope is to submit." And they said, "This is not the voice of the true source. This is the voice of a counterfeit ruler demanding worship." The Archons work very well through this pattern. First, convince you that you are small, dirty, and powerless. Second, convince you that all authority lies outside of you, in a book, an institution, or a distant god who may or may not love you. Third, create fear. Fear of hell, fear of punishment, fear of rejection, fear of thinking for yourself. Finally, offer relief only if you surrender your discernment and your inner knowing. From the outside, it looks like comfort. On the inside, it is spiritual dependency. And it doesn't only happen in formal religion. The same pattern appears in political ideologies that demand blind loyalty, consumer culture that tells you you're never enough until you buy more, social media narratives that feed outrage, addiction, and comparison. The content changes. The structure remains the same. The Archonic pattern is simple. You are incomplete. You need what we provide. Do not trust your own inner light. Trust our version of reality. Once that seed is planted, it can grow into a forest of distortions. You might feel constant shame for simply existing. You might carry fear of being judged by an external authority. You might live your entire life trying to earn love, from God, from society, from your family, never realizing that unworthiness was programmed into you. From the Gnostic viewpoint, this is not an accident. It is the software of the invisible prison. Think of it this way. If the true source is infinite love and intelligence, then any system that uses terror, manipulation, or enforced ignorance to keep you in line is not representing that source. It's representing the Archons. But here's the twist. The Archons don't only act through institutions out there, they also echo inside your own head. Every time a voice inside says, "Who do you think you are?" you're not allowed to question that. Stay small, stay quiet, don't look too deeply. You are hearing the internalized Archon, not as a demon with horns, but as a habitual thought pattern, installed through culture, trauma, and repetition. That's why Gnosis is such a threat to them. Gnosis doesn't mean memorizing secret names. It means seeing through the pattern, both outside and inside. The moment you recognize, This fear is not my true voice. This unworthiness is not the truth of my soul. The grip of the pattern weakens. The Archons lose power not when you fight them on their own terms, but when you withdraw your belief from the lies they planted. And that brings us to the more personal side of the prison. How the Archonic pattern shows up in everyday life in ways you might never have suspected. You don't have to see mysterious beings in the sky to experience the influence of the Archons. You just have to watch how your mind behaves in a normal day. From a Gnostic perspective, the Archons feed on forgetfulness, fragmentation, and automatic living. Look at how easy it is to spend days, weeks, years of your life constantly distracted, constantly reacting, constantly chasing something, validation, comfort, status, numbness. The average day for many people looks like this. Wake up, grab the phone, scroll. Work or school, stress, deadlines, tension held in the body. Short moments of relief, food, entertainment, sex, consumption. Collapse into sleep, wake up, repeat. Is this evil? Not necessarily. But is it conscious? Very often, no. In this state, your attention is owned by whatever shouts the loudest. Your inner life becomes background noise. The divine spark within you is buried under notifications, worries, and survival patterns. This is ideal for the invisible prison. Because as long as you don't question deeply, don't sit in silence long enough to feel yourself, don't ask where your thoughts and emotions come from, you remain manageable. The Archonic influence also moves through unhealed trauma. When something painful happens, rejection, humiliation, violence, neglect, it often installs a story. I am not safe. I am not worthy. I am alone. I am broken. These stories then color everything you experience. The Gnostics might say, the trauma is real, but the story around it becomes a hook that keeps your consciousness looping through the same reactions, the same relationships, the same self-sabotage. Again, the Archons do not need to stand over you with chains. They only need you to repeat, this is all I am. This is all I can be. This world defines me. On top of this, modern life adds another layer. Endless stimulation. If there is one thing that can prevent gnosis, it is never having a moment of stillness. When was the last time you sat alone without music, without a screen, without a task, and simply watched your own mind? Silence is dangerous to the Archonic pattern, because in silence, something else begins to emerge. A sense of simple presence, a noticing of the space in which thoughts appear, a feeling of I am that is deeper than your latest worry. From a Gnostic standpoint, that silent awareness is the first doorway back toward the pleroma, which means everything that keeps you permanently away from it, overwork, overstimulation, constant comparison, fear of missing out, can be used as a tool of the invisible prison. So where do you see this in your life? The relationship you know is dead, but you stay in because you're afraid of being alone. The job that crushes your soul, but you cling to it because your worth is tied to productivity. The spiral of scrolling late at night, numbing while a quiet voice in you whispers, there is more to life than this, and you ignore it. Every time you turn away from that quiet voice, the Archons win a tiny victory, not because they are stronger than you, but because you forgot that the voice of truth inside you is more real than the noise outside. The good news is that the prison is not airtight. Cracks appear. In those moments when you look at the stars and feel something indescribable. When you see kindness break through cruelty unexpectedly. When you feel love surge up in you for no logical reason. Those moments are the soul pressing against the bars. The question is, what do you do with them? Do you brush them aside and rush back into the program? Or do you let them change you? That leads us to the final and most important part of the Gnostic answer. How do you begin to walk out of the invisible prison while still living in this world? If the Archons rule through illusion, then the only true escape is seeing clearly. The Gnostics didn't promise an easy exit, a one-time ritual, or a magic formula. What they offered was a path of remembrance. It begins with a simple but radical shift. Instead of asking, how do I fix this broken world? You start asking, who am I in the midst of it? Not as a concept, not as a role, but as a living reality. The more you turn inward, not as escape but as investigation, the more you begin to sense, I am not my thoughts. I am not my fears. I am not the story I've been repeating. You start to notice that everything you can observe, emotions, beliefs, reactions, appears and disappears in something more stable. Your awareness. That awareness is not flashy. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand your worship. It simply is. From a Gnostic lens, that quiet awareness is the doorway to the true source. It is the ember of the divine spark, the fragment of the pleroma, the whisper of Sophia within you. So the first practice is, pay attention to the one who is aware. When fear rises, notice it. When shame speaks, notice it. When your ego reacts, notice it. Not to judge yourself, but to see, this is not the whole of me. Each moment of this noticing is like a beam of light entering the prison. The Archons thrive in automation, not in awareness. The second practice is discernment. Begin to question every voice, outer or inner, that speaks in the language of absolute unworthiness, absolute fear, absolute obedience without understanding. Ask, does this voice lead me deeper into truth, love, and clarity? Or does it lead me into more fear, division, and self-hatred? The true source may challenge you, may strip away illusions, may lead you through hard lessons, but it does not need to crush you to control you. Any force that tries to own your conscience through terror is not the ultimate reality. The third practice is recognition of the spark in others. When you look into someone's eyes and feel that subtle recognition, that you behind the eyes that is more than their story, you are touching the same light that lives in you. The Archons want you to see only labels: friend, enemy, saved, lost, insider, outsider, worthy, unworthy. Gnosis sees something deeper. Underneath all of this, you are a fragment of the same light. You may be lost, but you are not worthless. This doesn't mean tolerating abuse or abandoning boundaries. It means refusing to let the invisible prison turn your heart into stone. The fourth practice is reclaiming your attention. If your attention is the main resource the Archons work with, then choosing where you place it becomes an act of spiritual rebellion. Spend time in silence each day, even a few minutes. Step away from the constant stream of noise. Notice what happens when you are not being pulled in every direction. In that space, deeper questions can arise. Not the anxious kind, but the kind that feel like doors opening. Why am I really here? What is truly mine to do? What would a life guided by my inner knowing actually look like? You don't have to have all the answers. You only need to be willing to listen. Finally, remember this. The Archons are not afraid of your suffering. They are afraid of your remembrance. They are not threatened by a human being who is busy, stressed, and spiritually numb. They are threatened by a human being who can walk through this world, see the illusions clearly, and still choose to embody truth and love. Because that kind of human being exposes the false light simply by existing. From the Gnostic perspective, you did not accidentally land in this reality. You came as a carrier of something the system cannot control. You are not here just to survive the prison. You are here to see through it, and by seeing through it, weaken its hold. So as you finish this video, notice what is moving in you. Is it fear, resistance, relief, a strange sense of recognition? Whatever arises, let it become part of your practice. Observe it, question it. Let it lead you deeper into the one thing the Archons cannot counterfeit. Direct, living contact with your own deepest truth. If this exploration resonated with you, know that you are not alone. Across time, countless souls have felt the same unease with the official story, the same pull toward an unseen light. This is Gnostic Codex, exposing the false light, remembering who you are,